Hi there, I'm Elizabeth with Ellie's Handcrafted Jewelry, and welcome to my channel where I share tips, tricks, and tutorials for those looking to learn the art of wire weaving. Now, if you have been working with wire for any length of time like me, you probably have a bunch of scrap wire laying around that you don't know what to do with. Well, good news, today I'm starting a series that's going to help you kind of find uses for all of that scrap wire that you have laying around. And in this particular video, I'm going to be showing you how to create a simple clasp as well as a couple handmade chains so you can create your own bracelets and necklaces using scrap wire you have at home. And as I continue to add videos about this topic, you can find them all under the scrap wire series in my playlists on this channel. So let's get started. Now for tools and materials, you're going to need chain nose pliers, round nose pliers, and some flush cutters. I also recommend having a gauge card. They're really handy to have. And then of course we're going to need scrap wire. Specifically, I'm going with 22 gauge scrap wire, some 20 gauge scrap wire, also going to be using some 18 gauge scrap wire, and a bunch of weaving wire that I have stuck in my little scrap bin. And of course you'll need your favorite beads. I got these from Kazdan's. I'll leave some links in the description below as to where you can find some. And the first place I'm going to start is with the 18 gauge wire. And I'm just going to trim off the end so that way it is flush. Make sure you're wearing safety glasses or being careful when you're cutting wire. I'm going to straighten this out just a tad. I'm going to grab my round nose pliers. And I'm going to gently create a bend on one end. Grab my round nose pliers about a quarter of an inch on the way up, and just gently curve it over. Like so. And then just below the little curved hook portion, create a little loop. Like that. Grab my flush cutters again and trim that off. There's our little hook. Grab my chain nose pliers and even things up a little bit. That's a cute little clasp. It's not necessary, but I do recommend filing the end. You can use sandpaper. I have these sanding pads, so you can use those on the end. If you have a cup burr, that will also work. Go over here and grab it. Just stick it on there and turn in one direction. And that will soften the end of the clasp. Now the next step is to grab some of your old weaving wire. It can be 26 or 28 gauge. And I'm just going to wrap it around some of the interior of the clasp. And you can do this for any length that you want. This is just going to add some texture to the clasp. Just scrunch down your wire. I'm just going to wrap down to that little loop. Now when you get to this point, sometimes you can do a pull and twist method, but for a wrap like this, a coil around a bigger gauge, I like to trim with my flush cutters and then tuck it in with my pliers. Grab my chain nose pliers. And it should be tucked more into the clasp so it doesn't catch on anything. And there's your little clasp. Now for the links, I just grabbed 3 of these little coin-shaped beads and strung them on. This is 22 gauge wire, and I've strung them on. So now I'm going to create a little loop. Do that a little further down, like that. And you can use your round nose pliers again, or I'm going to use my chain nose pliers to hold that here. Just wrap that around 3 times. Trim off the excess. And then tuck that in over here so it doesn't stick out. And slide your beads into that little loop. Now I'm going to do the other side. And what I do is I place my pliers just above the beads and bend off to the side. So that'll make just a nice little space for another coil to match. And usually if you just do the end of your pliers, that is just the right distance that you need. And grabbing on top, bending this over. Using all my pressure in my left hand, not using the pliers as much, just kind of using my pliers to hold that in place. And I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers because that'll be easier to hold. Now I'm going to wrap that around 3 times. Put that in just a little bit. I'm going to trim that off with my flush cutters. So now we have one link. The loops are a little uneven, but that's okay. And I'm going to show you how to add another one since this is a closed eye link. So I'm going to, you can either string on your bead afterward because this does have an open end, but I'm going to string them on first. Now once I've strung on my beads, I'm basically going to repeat the same thing. I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to turn this, create my little loop. Then I'm going to grab the link, feed that onto the loop, like so. Grab my chain nose pliers and hold that in place while I create my little coil. Wrap this around here 3 times. Grab my flush cutters and trim that off. Tucking that in a little bit. You can always tuck in the end after you add the beads as well. I just like to do it first. Move up my little beads. Grab my round nose pliers again. Create a little spot on top. Bending it over. Wrapping it around. Grabbing my chain nose pliers. And wrapping around again. Then you just trim off the excess with your flush cutters. And you just keep adding links to your chain until you get it to the length that you want it. Now, if you do happen to close the loop before you're ready, all is not lost. You just simply attach on the other side, bending this over, doing my little loop, making sure not to close it just yet. It's going to be a longer way down, but we can do it. Like so. Grabbing your chain nose pliers, wrapping that around. Alright, so now that we have our chain, it's time to move on to adding an extender chain. Now for my extender chain, I'm using 20 gauge wire, which I have a lot of. And I'm going to use this and give me an idea of length. So I'm going to cut off in 1-inch segments. And I'll cut maybe 3 to 5 of them. We'll do 5. You may need to trim the ends a little bit if they are sharp. Let's go ahead and start making our little links. So first you're going to start by creating a little loop on one end. And then a little loop on the other end, going the same direction towards each other. Like that. Place them in your round nose pliers and bend them to where those little loops meet. Like that. Now we're going to grab another one, bend only one side, and we're going to stick it through the 2 loops here in the previous one. Bend it same direction as the previous one. That. Place it in your pliers and bend till those 2 loops meet. So we have 2 links so far. I'll show you one more time. So grab your little segment of wire, create a little loop at the end, just on one end. Stick it through the loop. Make sure your loops are going to face the same direction as the previous loops. Now I'm going to turn that down so those are facing the same direction. Them in my round nose pliers and bend until those 2 loops meet. And you can adjust them as needed. And once we have our little extender chain, we can add that to our actual chain. There might be room to put it in one of the loops. If not, you can easily make a jump ring. Now you can easily create a jump ring. I have my 18 gauge wire here still. And so I'm going to put it on my round nose pliers and slowly move it around my round nose pliers, making sure it goes underneath. I'm going to grab my flush cutters and we're going to cut with the flat facing to my right. And I'm going to turn this around and cut again, making sure that my flush face is facing to the right, so that way it's a nice even spot. So that way it sits nicely next to the other side. I'm going to feed that on there. I fit on my extender chain, grabbing my other chain. Stick it on there. Now you can use 2 pliers, but my wire is soft enough I can kind of wiggle it with my fingers here. So there's one side with the extender chain. And now on the other side we can grab our toggle, or not our toggle, our S clasp. Our little hook clasp, I mean. And stick that on chain on the opposite side. And now you have a whole bracelet made from nothing but scrap wire and your favorite beads. And it even comes with an extender clasp, so it'll fit more wrists. And I hope that you had fun making your little bracelet from scrap wire. I've had this scrap wire sitting in my tub for like 2 years, so it's just really good to feel like I'm actually using it rather than wasting it. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, I'll go ahead and leave them in the comment section below as I try to get to them as quickly as I can. I would also like to tell you about the Learn to Weave newsletter, where you can sign up to get emails about upcoming blogs, tutorials, things of that nature. And I'd like to invite you to join the Facebook group where you can share your work and ask questions to fellow artisans just like yourself. Until next time, happy weaving.